This meeting will come to order. Can we have a roll call of member present, please?
William Klein.
Here.
Ron Shamash.
Here.
Roger Grave de Peralta.
Here.
Tom Wenham.
Yeah.
Ryan Mishkin.
Here.
And Stacy Summers and Miguel Alonso have excused absences. You have a quorum.
Okay, we have a quorum. Thank you. Welcome to everybody. Let's rise to pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Has everyone had a chance to read the November 28 minutes? Any corrections?
Motion to approve. Second.
All four say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion approved. Are there any changes, addition, or deletion to the agenda?
No.
Okay, we gonna swear in, I guess, the staff today. Do you swear to say the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Okay, our next order of business is new business. The first item is 19010, Wellington Green Master Sign Plan for the Fairfield Inn and Suites by Marriott. Do any of the board member wish to disclose any ex parte communication?
Just drove past it, that's all.
Yeah, I think I drive past it every week or
Every
so,
day.
yeah. I can say the restaurant, the new restaurant there is very busy, so nice. Okay, what are staff recommendations, please?
Hi, good evening. Damian Newell with the Planning and Zoning Division. Before you is the Wellington Green Master Sign Plan Petition Number 19-10 ARB 1901. The petitioner is seeking approval to amend the approved the Wellington Green Master Sign Plan to allow one sign panel for the existing monument sign within the median on Wellington Green Drive. The sign panel is for the Fairfield Inn, which is located in MUPDB. The sign is located south of the intersection of Forest Hill Boulevard and Wellington Green Drive. As indicated in Exhibit A of the staff report, the location also indicates the site of the newly constructed Fairfield Inn Hotel that was approved by ARB in 2017. The request is to amend sign number 6 as illustrated on the Wellington Green Master Sign Plan and on Exhibit C of your staff report. Per the Wellington Green Master Sign Plan, sign number 6 is limited to signage for the residential pods B and C of the Wellington Green project. Pod B is the Estates apartments, and Pod C is Camden Court, now known as Access Apartment. The LDR indicates major amendments to the master sign plan approved by council for projects with a LSMU future land use map designation shall be approved by council. So this is an approval that is given to you. Any changes to that master plan, this board will make those changes.
Okay.
The ARB previously approved an amendment to this sign number 6, to allow the Hampton Inn sign that is currently on there. Again, the Hampton Inn is not in one of the residential pod, but the ARB did approve that previously to allow that. Sign number 6 consists of 3 panels: the Estates Apartments, Access Apartment, and Hampton Inn Hotel. Wellington received a letter, as indicated in Exhibit B of the staff report, from Access indicating the approval to remove the sign panel as it's not needed for their access on Wellington Green Drive because it's only for residents only. And so they're okay with the removal of this. Allowing the Fairfield Inn Hotel to have a sign panel on 6 will provide needed visibility for this hotel, which is located behind the inline building located at MUPDB. This hotel have visitors who are typically from out of town and not accustomed to the area. So this would provide needed visibility. With the approval, the sign will be, as again indicated in Exhibit C, will be in the middle of the estates and the Hampton Inn sign. Staff does recommend approval with 3 conditions, as indicated in the staff report. Staff is available, and the applicant is available to answer any questions. Staff would also like to enter this petition into the records. If you do have any questions, please let staff know. The applicant does not have a presentation, so we are available for any questions.
Okay, let me just swear in the applicant in case anybody has question for you. Can you please rise? Do you swear to say the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? But the truth. Thank you. Okay, does any one of the board have any question regarding staff recommendation or to the applicants?
I do not.
Hey, Roger?
I do. Is this a two-sided monument sign or just one?
2-side,
So they'll be doing this on both sides?
correct.
Is that stated anywhere in the,
Actually, it is. Yeah, I remember reading
I
it.
missed that.
It
I
says
missed it
on
somewhere.
both
I can't
sides,
I missed that somewhere, so.
yes.
just
It does
making
say on
sure.
both sides.
I remember reading it, yeah.
Okay. And then my other question is, on the Exhibit C,
Yes.
it's showing a 7-foot dimension on the elevation drawing and then also on the graphic detail of the sign. And they appear to be different. I would like to potentially say that the picture that's been rendered where we see Fairfield Inn, you see how Fairfield Inn is about the same size as the Hampton Inn sign below it. If the elevation was true and 7 feet's the whole thing, then the Fairfield Inn sign would be much wider and take up more room on the sign.
Okay.
So I would propose that we make the sign no wider than the Hampton Inn sign, not 7, in case 7 feet is the wrong dimension. I don't know if that's true. We've seen before in the
Right.
past that we see the sign and it's much larger, it appears much larger than they made it look in the picture.
Right, the panel itself is 7 feet wide, that panel that it's,
The Fairfield panel? Okay.
right. But the actual lettering is not 7, but the panel itself is the 7.
Right, the lettering is 6'10".
Right.
So it's 2 inches less, not much less. Whereas if I look at that photograph, it looks like there's a good foot or more on the sides than
I guess
Where's-
maybe what you're saying is the drawing is not to scale, really.
yes, the drawing is,
That's probably what it is.
But
the 7 feet may not be the right dimension on the drawing is my
right,
question.
according to the graphic here, that's showing the Fairfield Inn, the lettering will be 6 feet 10 inches.
Right, and my concern is if the sign is really 7 feet like the drawing shows, then that's gonna fill too much of the sign for me.
Okay.
Why don't we, if somebody make a motion, we'll say the panel has to be the same size as the
No.
Hampton Inn panel.
No larger than the
No
Hampton
larger
Inn
than
sign.
Hampton Inn panel, and then you kind of,
Because I'm just worried that if the dimension's
that
wrong, they could be bigger than,
You want to have equal space on both sides of that.
I'm okay with it looking like the picture that's the proposed rendering.
Right.
okay, anybody else?
I agree with Roger, actually, on that.
Okay, I personally think it looks fine. I definitely think it's nice if we kind specify exactly so that it doesn't get different than the picture.
I had one more question before we finish.
Yeah.
But will there be a different color behind the Fairfield Hill sign? Like, is that panel like a different color, or is it
No,
just
it's
going to be?
just based on the graphic. It's
So it'll
gonna the
just
same
be on
color.
the stucco.
Yes.
Does the Hampton Inn have like a background behind it?
It's just the panel. It's like a white panel.
The white panel that it's
yes.
mounted on, and this
It's
all.
mounted on the white panel, and the panel is attached to the monument
Now,
itself.
is the estates where it says the estates designer apartments? Does that have a panel that's mounted on too, or is that just
That
letters
does
onto
not
the
have a
stucco?
panel. That was part of the original, because it was the original sign, so it was all done at one time, one panel.
Yeah.
And then these are additional panels that are,
Yeah, what's interesting about the whole sign in general, I don't know, to me, when I look at this sign, it looks like it's a development called the Estates Designer Apartments, and then it has two tenants, the Fairfield and the Hampton Inn.
Right.
Something about it looks like that, which it still looks nice when I see it, so I don't have a problem with it. But something's confusing about the signage there.
I have a question. I noticed that this again is on Exhibit C, that the Fairfield Inn will be 8 and 11/16 inches. That's the width of the lettering on the sign?
Height.
the height, yes.
Okay. Then what is it going to be on the Hampton Inn and Suites? What is the height of that lettering going to be?
Those are existing,
Well, if I look at the existing
Right.
sign, Hampton Inn, now it's Hampton Inn and Estates, and it looks like by Hilton under that. So is that going to be comparable to the 8 and 11/16 for the Fairfield? Is that what you were getting at?
Kind of, that there's something, just to make sure that the proportion of this really looks like they're showing it here in the picture, not like some of the drawings. Like the rendering looks okay, but these drawings, we can't tell because they're not really to scale or something's not jiving. So that's my concern, is that it actually looks kind of in proportion like it's shown in the rendering.
so we'll, in terms of that, we want to make sure it does not exceed the existing Hampton Inn
I think,
size.
I think for me that does it.
Okay.
If it looks like,
I would, I'm sorry to interject, but I would probably stick to the way the rendering is, because Hampton Inn has their way of writing Hampton Inn.
oh no, that's
And
built already.
Fairfield has their way of writing Fairfield, so we don't want to infringe on the brand, because that actually catches the eyes of who everybody drives in. So as long as we kind of restrict the panel to be the same size as the Hampton Inn panel, I think they'll do the right thing.
That's fine.
Well, just for clarification, is it the panel or the lettering?
Yeah.
The panel should be exactly the
Because
same.
the panel right now is the same size.
Right.
But is this a matter if the lettering, based on what my understanding is the lettering, the
I
text?
okay.
My opinion, I would leave the lettering for them, because Fairfield chose to put Inn and Suite by Marriott on the side. Hampton Inn chose to put everything in one line and then put by Hilton on the bottom. So I would just make the panel the same, and then just let
Okay.
them use their branding whichever way they want. I'm sure they want to make it look nice.
Good with that. That's good. I'm good.
Okay, can I have anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna close the discussion. Any motions?
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve, what is it?
19010.
1901, based on the recommendation given us by a staff.
Okay, any
And,
seconds?
well, can I amend it to add, that the panel will be the same size, the Fairfield panel is the same size as the Hampton Inn sign panel?
I think that shows, Roger, that they're both 1 feet 8 inches.
Aren't
In
they-
height,
aren't they
and they're
constrained by
supposed
the-
to be 7, but I'm just worried that they're not gonna be.
Aren't they constrained by the vertical supports?
If, these are glued onto the wall, I suppose, right?
Yeah, they're just attached to the existing.
Oh, okay, so it's,
It's the same.
Okay,
They're
I'm just
the same.
making sure, I can't tell and it doesn't,
If Mr. Wyndham doesn't object, we can amend it to make sure the
Yeah,
panels
again, the-
will remain the same as we expect it to
The
be.
panels are the same.
Side,
The only
yeah.
thing that may change is
Yeah.
the lettering.
Yeah.
Again,
Okay.
maybe
But I
different
thought we
lengths.
agreed that the lettering, even you mentioned it, it's the lettering for Fairfield and Hampton Inn, they've changed it around.
But-
So,
but-
but it shows here in Exhibit C that both signs are gonna be 1 feet 8 inches.
they're both gonna be the same height and the same width.
Yeah.
And they look good the way they've shown them to me,
Yeah.
so I'm
Okay.
good.
Second,
so there's no change to Tom's motion?
No.
Okay.
and what Tom said, it implies that the
Okay,
panels
okay.
are the same, so if staff has problem with that, I guess we'll bring it back. I'm sure they will.
Well, I'm sure that following up, that you're
Okay.
gonna make sure that there's 1 feet 8 inches of the sign space, so to speak.
Right.
And the lettering, we have agreed that there is no real choice here. I mean, as they designate it, it's fine with us. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Call the motion.
Oh, second?
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, motion pass, no objection.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, guys. Okay, our next order of business is a presentation by staff on the white vinyl fences.
So, at the last meeting, we had a discussion on the fences, so I went back, drove around, did some research, watched the videos, the 4 videos that went with the motion.
Thank you, by the way.
You're welcome.
for
So I did a
freshening
little
the memory.
timeline here, so you can see, how it started, how the discussion started, and how it kind of, played out. So just going over that, the discussion first started with the Wellington Park, the neighborhood next to it, which is Versailles. They were proposing to have a white vinyl perimeter fence, which was required. Some kind of fencing was required for the project. The community came out, a lot of the community came out that abutted that buffer and, expressed their opinion that they didn't like that and they wanted something stucco, a wall, or something like that. So that started the conversation. So they didn't get approval for the white vinyl. So then as the meetings went on April 17th, another board member brought it up about how he didn't like it, and for staff to bring it back in the June meeting. June meeting came, they added it to the agenda. One person suggested having it only on the interior, but how could staff really do that? Because you can't really just allow it on the interior. It got a little funky, right? So there was consensus to remove it from the agenda and that they would vote on it again in August. So then August came and that's when they voted on it. And then back in June of 2016, staff brought attention to the fact that, you have some people that have white vinyl maybe on the left side of their house facing the right of way and not on the right, and because maybe they didn't have enough money to put the other side on at the time, and now they want to come in and put it, but staff can't allow that administratively because of the vote that happened back in 2013. So that's when, in 2016, they allowed us to approve administratively, but it was very specific that they have to have one side already facing a right-of-way. So it was very few cases that we ever allowed these fences administratively since 2013, okay? So that was kind of like the timeline of how it got approved, or how it was taken off of the approved schedule. I don't want you to vote on anything tonight because there is 2 people missing, and this board requires 4 people to pass anything. So if we want, I can continue on with my presentation and we can show it, and I can show you what pictures I took. But as far as voting on it, I would wait until we have a few more people on the board, because that means it's not majority of present, it's the majority of the board that we would need approval for to approve anything or deny anything.
Okay.
So,
If you don't mind, guys, I think we should have a small discussion just to kind of invigorate the issue and kind of hash it in our mind. And I think we can skip the presentation because
we're
we
gonna skip
have
it.
it
Okay,
anyway.
that's fine.
And
I can show it
then
next
we'll
time.
table the voting for another time.
Okay, that's
But
fine.
I think it's going to be healthy to discuss it. Also, there was a resident letter from a gentleman from Sugar Pond.
Actually, you don't know if it was a gentleman or a lady, because it was anonymous.
Yeah, it was anonymous. I really don't know who did that,
And I
but
spoke to legal, and legal said we have the option of ignoring it or taking it into consideration, since they chose not to identify themselves. It's our option.
I understand. It looks like that person did go through the motions of putting his opinion in paper and did the research and everything. So I would accept it. It would be.
But was embarrassed to identify themselves, or a coward, whatever.
Whichever way, maybe they didn't want repercussion. But whatever it is, I think it's the one thing that I want to mention in the letter that is important. They kind of felt it wasn't right for us to discuss it and try to vote for it without having it officially on the agenda in advance rather than do it on the fly. And I think for any future changes that we want to do, I think discussion is healthy at any time. But if we vote on a general change to the rules, we should definitely have it in the agenda so people can come and voice their opinion if they choose to.
I would agree with you.
All right, so anybody else want to start the discussion? Anybody?
The only thing I will mention is what I had brought up at the last meeting, that if the issue of what fences look like after a period of time being up, whether it's wood or concrete block, or, which I guess would be under a different, I guess that'd be a structure, or PVC, if it's deterioration that's the concern and what it looks like, then that becomes a code compliance issue and really not an issue for us. And that was my point in the last meeting. And if it's a structurally, or not structurally, if it's aesthetically acceptable and structurally adequate and meets appropriate building codes, I think it should be an option available to our residents. And in the package, and we'll save this for when our full board is here, it looks like it's substantially cheaper than the alternative PVC colors.
Right, for
So
higher-
we would be forcing residents to a more expensive option.
For 150 linear feet of fence, you're talking between $450 and $1,200 more. So it's raising it from like 4,000 to 4,500 to about 5,000 to
It's raising the cost.
5 and a
And
quarter.
That's a
and-
small lot. Those are like your lots in Olympia. I mean, when I installed my fence, I think I
Right.
had 120 linear feet, and I live in one of those types of lots. So, I mean, that's a small lot.
And Kelly, am I also correct that what we would do with PVC fences would have no impact on HOA'd communities? It would only apply to the non-HOA'd communities?
No, it would apply to all of Wellington, and the HOA can
Be more restrictive?
be more restrictive, so they can decide whether they want it or not.
Can they be less restrictive?
No.
Okay.
That's a standard, I guess. It seems like it is just sort of an aesthetic issue,
It is, yeah.
so.
I mean, there were a lot of nice ones out there. There were not so nice ones out there, but then woods, there was a lot of not nice wood ones and a lot of nice wood ones. Same with all types. I mean, it really is just how you maintain it.
Yep.
And
It's
ma-
important.
and is it correct that maintenance is strictly a code compliance issue?
Correct.
It is anybody else? Because I want to put my 50 cents in
Still-
as well.
No, please.
I still don't, you want to go? I still don't know, when is a landscape hedge required and when is it not?
Here. So a hedge is required when it's facing when any of these type fences are facing a right of way. So if you're facing, say you live on Linton Circle and you face Linton Circle and you have a board on board, anything that's not a gate part that faces Linton Circle will require to have a hedge. Anything that faces a major thoroughfare is required to have a hedge that is solid like this, like these pictures. The only type that is required to have hedge the entire length is a chain link. I know I had another picture on there, but I was wrong. So it's just this one. It's just the chain link.
So basically, the only thing that's not, where it's not required to have landscaping is
Pickets.
your side property line and your rear property line.
No.
Rear when you
And if you have
face,
a picket fence, you're not
and
required to do it.
I mean, if you're a corner lot, you're required to have one.
Okay, yeah.
Picket fences don't, like the aluminum rails don't. They're not required to have any hedge.
Even in the front?
Nope.
Right.
So then not even facing it,
If it's an open
Yeah.
type.
not even facing the right of way, they don't need a hedge.
Yes, correct.
My neighbor has just installed, and I'm looking at your chat here, and very well done, too, an aluminum rail fence, which says bronze, black, or white. He's put it in white. And it doesn't look bad. Whenever I look out my windows to out the backyard, I can see it. So I guess what what would we look for differently in a vinyl coated chain link fence that is brown, black, or green? In other words, I guess.
Why you
would-
cover it?
Yeah,
'Cause I guess because at the time when they were making the rules, it's a cheaper product, right? They want something
The
that,
aesthetic
the
of it.
aesthetic of, yeah, so the aluminum rail is just a nicer material. And then obviously we don't want anything galvanized, because that's even worse to look at, so they make it so that you have to have it coated.
But like Kelly
Right,
said, you do need,
the chain link is, I live in the Crescent, we have white picket fences. Initially, we were supposed to get a bronze window and the fences, and the builder, I guess, changed his mind. If you have a chain link fence, even between the properties, it would kind of really cheapen out the property substantially. And so that's one issue. The other issue is the
Let me just ask about that. Are there, what are the restrictions on chain link fences on the side property lines? Any?
You can have
you
them.
can
Gotta be
have chain
hedged.
link, but
They
you
have
have
to
to
be hedged.
hedge it.
So if,
You have to hedge the entire length, even if it's internal.
Internal,
oh, okay.
on the sides,
Okay, so if,
the outside and the
if I'm
front.
just in a typical residential block where there are, say, 6 houses in a row,
Right.
and there's a chain link fence separating 2 of the lots, that has to be landscaped on one side?
Yes.
Okay.
Entire
Okay.
interior.
I didn't understand that.
right. Basically, once you hedge it, you don't see the chain link really. If the hedge is maintained correctly.
At one point in the, at one point in time, was there no requirement for that? Because,
It's always
I think
been a
they've always
requirement.
been there, yeah.
okay,
At least since
I see,
was
I
a-
see a lot of chain
A
link fences in
requirement.
Sugar Pond that don't seem to
for
have any
maintenance.
landscaping.
It's always been a requirement, but it's always been, it's, you know, the maintenance, the enforcement of it sometimes
okay.
has been. And, you know, we were county first, so a lot of fences were installed and may not have had the follow-up. But
Okay,
since we became a village, it is very strict. It's,
so if they're really old from before we were a village, it's possible
it's
there
possible, but
wasn't a
they
landscape requirement.
still,
Okay.
they would still need a hedges. But as I was just mentioning to Kelly, the only other place where you don't put any hedges along a chain link fence is on our maintenance easements, where we back up to, the property backs up to water, which is our maintenance easement. We don't allow the hedges around there on our maintenance easement.
So you can see the water.
That's the reason, and for maintenance purposes for the village.
So some of the and I'm familiar with Sugar Pond. So some of the canals that run through Sugar Pond, some people have erected fences around their property to keep their children from
Sure.
going down in the canals. The backside of those fences that abut the canal are in the village's
Maintenance.
utility easement,
Maintenance easement.
maintenance easement, so it doesn't, okay,
It doesn't require
understand.
landscaping.
okay, thank you.
And the code officers can only, issue citations or
Right.
warnings for things that they can see from the road. They
Right.
can't go on
I know.
somebody else's property and cite someone from, from what the property owner sees, so.
Okay, here's my take on it. First of all, I probably, when we actually vote for it, I want to actually separate it between a resident and a residential home and a development. So we don't have the repeat of the Wellington Park situation where one developer chooses to put a white vinyl fence for their community, but they're baiting with they're right next to a community like what happened with Versailles that doesn't have it, and then they create like an eyesore for the people that stay there. So I want to separate those. The other thing I want to say is I feel very uncomfortable restricting residents from something rather than other, because I believe in
I do too.
the freedom of a person to do what they want in the house, but yet we have to have those restrictions. And as I'm driving around, those white vinyl fences do pop out. So unless it's a nicer, some vinyl fences with a design on top, like some of your picture that looks very nice, the simple plain vinyl fence is, for me, is a little intrusive and too much. But having said that, I would definitely be open to when, I don't know how we can formulate it, when the neighborhood has it, and if it's coming in the neighborhood, definitely if the resident already have a vinyl fence on some part of the property, you know, and you're gonna ask him to change the color on another. So that would be an issue that will come up. The question is, do we want them to come up every time, or do we want to provide an approval for it? As far as the upkeep, when the wooden fence is not being kept properly, and I know it's a code enforcement issue, it's not as visible as when the white fence, vinyl fence is not kept up, because that really jumps right at you wherever you're on.
Well,
So that's why I have,
I agree.
both sides of the
A
fence.
discolored wood fence looks like a tree.
right, unless you look at it, you
Yeah.
kind of don't quite see it, but the white one, when it had the rust color or
Or
it's broken
The green, yeah.
or bent,
the
you can
green
see it. I mean, it's right in your face. So it's something to think about.
And my position on that is, that's a code enforcement issue, not our issue. I understand it happens, and code enforcement can't do everything. Maybe we're expecting too much of them,
I mean,
but is it our obligation to do their job for them by prohibiting the use of a a structurally and code acceptable product? I left out the word aesthetically.
Okay. Well, that's what we do. We do aesthetics here. So it's a tough choice. I mean, we went gun ho on it because of what the developer was saying in the meeting. They said, we don't care what you say, we put in vinyl. And we said, we're not gonna approve it.
And I think your suggestion is a very good one. If a development or whatever's going in and it's say a perimeter fence or an isolation fence, that probably should fall into a different category than just what a resident is gonna do on their property.
Right, and by the way, they put a very nice fence there. It's still vinyl, but they made it look like a stone wall.
Oh, yeah.
It's very nice. So they ended up fixing it in a way that was very aesthetically pleasing, and that's really what we were looking for. We just didn't want to penalize Versailles that already existed there, with a new developer wanting to get the cheapest way in for a perimeter fence.
Another thing that you can do when, if it comes where you vote on it, to limit it to not be on any major thoroughfares, because I know was one of the reasons why it was removed, was because if it's on a thoroughfare, it's bright, or it could be blinding from the sun or something. But and they liked the wood look of the thoroughfares. So I don't know if you want to limit it to the thoroughfares or.
That's a good suggestion. So if it's within a development, we could be okay with it, maybe.
But on a thoroughfare.
On the major roads, yeah, we'll keep it
Kelly,
off.
has there been any more discussion, or are they gonna talk about it in visioning, about on major thoroughfares to try to put in more of the, whatever you call them, structural walls?
Not that I know of. I mean, I know they've been trying to see if they can get some traction, but I mean, I haven't heard about it in a
Okay.
while.
Nothing actively going on?
Yeah.
Okay.
and Kelly, one question on your research here. It's very nice, but it's very
Yeah,
nice.
thank you.
Um,
It was great.
on page 36, where you're showing deteriorated and discolored fences, do we know, is that rust stain easy to clean, or does it ruin the fence? I mean,
I'm not sure. I could always call a fence person and ask them.
because if it's as easy as pressure cleaning, it comes off, that's great.
Yeah.
But if we have now allowed them to have a cheaper fence that can't be fixed,
Yeah.
The
then
sun, yeah, that
is
got,
that a problem?
You know
the
what
sun
that
actually
looks like
changed
to
its
me?
color.
It looks like somebody has a sprinkler.
Sprinklers.
Yeah.
But can it be, is it embedded, or can it come right off?
Come off.
I've seen the green
If
come
it's
right
been-
off, but I
If
don't
it's been
know.
there for a while, it's probably not coming off.
Hard,
Just like
yeah,
your
hardened,
house, right?
hardened,
It doesn't come
hardened,
off.
yeah. So that's something I'd like to know
The bottom one is
about.
actually a beige one, the bottom of this
Bottom-
picture.
Bottom right one is beige?
The bottom right was a beige fence.
Really?
Yeah, so even the
You
beige
can't tell in the picture, yeah.
show the discoloration
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Well, and I have a little,
Well water.
I have
Yeah,
a
and
little.
yeah, these ones were in like the well water area. The top ones were not. Those were in Olympia, so you see the black, so you wouldn't see the iron. But the bottom ones were in like the equestrian area, or right
Where's the
on
well water,
the
yeah.
buffer of the equestrian
Yeah.
area.
Well, and then I took a little video. I was on a street somewhere, I think it was on the West Coast somewhere, and I just saw a wall of fences, and I saw all the different types of fences, like white vinyl, wood, white vinyl, a lot of different fences. And you could see varying levels of maintenance. Like obviously some white fences looked beautifully white,
Yeah.
others had green stuff all over and whatever. So I thought it was just interesting to see like this row of fences in a row, because you could see a lot of, it is a lot of upkeep, and then you could see how the white looks, and I think there's even a beige fence in the mix, so it was interesting to see. I don't know if I can share it send it to you or
Yeah,
something?
you can send it to me. I can
I'll send it to you
figure out how to pop
and
it
see
in
if
this,
it's worth seeing.
this video. this
That's a very good
PowerPoint.
example
Yeah.
of the different types and the visual of
Yeah,
it
you
as
could see
you-
kind of the impact of
Yeah.
a wall of these, and a varied mix of fences too.
But you
So-
can see, like, I know we weren't really supposed to go to this PowerPoint, but you could see in this slide here, the top left, this was in Olympia. You see how there's a little gap in between the beige and the brown, which is very odd. But the and
Which
now
way-
after
are-
I got the,
Are you in 36 still, or?
No.
I'm not
The
sure
one,
what
the one on the video monitor.
35.
Oh, here we go.
So,
35, okay.
I'm not sure, why this happened, but after getting the pricing, I can understand why this happened. It's because the brown is very expensive. And so he probably didn't want different fence types in his backyard, which understandable. Like, I can understand that. You don't want a mishmash of colors, but if the brown was first and the beige couldn't afford the brown, then that's what he wanted to do. The one next to it on the top right, the top right, where it's the white and the beige. This is in my parents' neighborhood. The one on the left has white. The one on the other side where you can't see the fence has white also, but this person came in after we got rid of the white. So he had to put in beige, and he has a pink wall in the back. So he has white on one side, white on the other side, beige in the front, and pink wall in the back.
So that's when you actually want the white to come in.
Exactly.
yeah.
So Kelly, let me, in the, just out of curiosity, the picture in the upper right, that is not landscape to code, correct?
No, I mean, the one on the left,
Yes,
You
I would
probably
say it pretty
could-
much is.
It's closed, right?
that's
Because
close.
there's one gate in each of them. And on the white fencing, you do have the hedge to the left of the gate. And then on the beige, you do have
I thought you had to plant 24-inch on center.
2 feet on center, yeah.
So you probably, there's
Maybe
only,
the one on
You
the
probably
beige.
Probably
confused
less
than
couple
should
two
use
feet
like
off the
one
edge.
more hedge,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
It's closed. It looks
The
like
other
it's less
ones
than
over
2 feet.
here, they don't have any hedges.
well, they're both gates.
These are gates
Yeah.
here, these guys are gates?
Yeah.
Wow. Big gates.
Oh, yeah, I see it, yeah.
But those are just examples of the different colors next to each other, and the one on the top right was a prime example of removing the white. This person now has 3 different fence types in their backyard, not by choice.
Right, so that's,
The white is still jarring no matter what you do, what you put it next to. I mean, for better or worse, it just it stands out.
Yep.
And our job is to, we're tasked with aesthetic, for the community, so.
But does it stand out enough that we should prohibit it? And I don't agree.
Like-
So,
Like I think that the ones that we have on page 33, they look nice with the hedge in front of them and the little white sticking out above it. I think that has a nice look.
That's the key.
And that's how it's supposed to be maintained.
Right.
That's the way it's supposed to be
Yeah.
with the landscaping.
But that's how all fences are
And
supposed
we
to
have
be
a nice
maintained,
contrast
not
with
just
the white and the green, and it looks okay. But the problem is that they don't all look like that, I guess.
And that is a difficult part of when you issue a permit for a fencing, where the follow-up, okay, they install the fence, then the next step is to install the hedges. And For the most part, most residents will abide by it. Others will have a more difficult time, installing it.
But am I correct that the permit doesn't get closed until all the actions are completed? Because that's what happened when I replaced my fence.
You have to have
I
the
don't know
hedge
when-
first.
I don't know. I mean, I
You
don't
know,
know when yours was done.
the fence went up, but when the inspector came out, he said, well, we can't close out the permit
Yes.
So the hedge
until your
Correct. So the
landscaping is
hedges are
installed.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, so the village does have the upper hand.
It does, but,
Okay.
Would,
battle.
would you guys be interested every time that somebody apply for a white PVC fence to go out there and look how does it is, and then make a judgment call based on the neighborhood, whether to get it? I mean, and we'll put it in your hands.
I don't think we have
You know how you have
the ability to
exceptions
do
to
that.
the
That would be
rule?
a lot of, and plus, I mean, that's a lot of administrative work on us when they are
And,
pushing
and
5,000
also
permits
with
out the
legal, it
door,
may be
you know?
okay because you gotta apply all the rules equally to everybody,
That's
so
why we
it's
sit
tough.
here as the board.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else?
No, I think
So,
there's a lot to think about.
depending on what happens next, I mean, we definitely have a meeting next month. We have an application that came in today. So we'll have a meeting. Hopefully we'll have everyone here at that meeting. No, you're not gonna be here.
When is the meeting next month? by the way?
April, or March 20th. So,
Oh,
I
I'm
mean, if
definitely
we
not gonna
have to
be here.
push it one
Okay,
more
so
month,
that's two of us who won't be here,
yeah.
Ron
Who's not
and
gonna be
me.
here? Oh, you're not gonna be here?
It's spring break, for the kids, so we may
And it's
wanna.
my mother's 95th birthday, so.
Oh, congratulations.
Well, maybe I can find a date, being that,
Or
it is
an
spring
interim.
break, we have a lot of
Move
people
it.
that have children on the board, maybe we can see if we can push it out another week, maybe to
That's
March
fine.
27th. I'll look to see the schedule, I'll talk to my director to see if that's something that is okay. So,
Sure.
I'll let you guys know,
Okay,
okay? And then we'll take it from there, we just need a bigger board to have this discussion, so.
Or, who meets the Wednesday before us? PZAB?
Oh, yeah, because remember when I was
Oh, you-
asking
yeah,
to
you
change
can't.
it?
Never mind.
And I
Never-
think
never-
Stacy-
American Legion posted.
Yeah, Stacy has a conflict too that
Okay.
Wednesday, because that's why we didn't change it.
Okay.
But no meeting is,
Who else
no,
had with that, Kelly?
Stacy.
Stacy.
But that may be a quarterly
So
meeting
it's-
month, so I have to double check. I have to see what the calendar looks like, because I think that's a quarterly meeting month, which all the boards meet.
One question, are there limitations to how we can approve this? For example, we say, like, yes, white, but only in this instance, in this specific type of vinyl. Is that fine, perfectly acceptable, or is it?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
You
That's
could
nitpicky,
say
but I'm just
that, you
curious.
can't have it on a major thoroughfare. You could say that they have to have it on at least one side, maybe.
So there's no real, okay.
how about a certain type, do we even wanna go there, like prefer one vinyl fence over another, the way
We
it
have
looks? or-
already certain types right there. I mean, the
You already
design is
have the
what you guys are
typical-
gonna look at.
I mean, just looking at this picture, I think the one in the top left looks nicer than the other three, like, hands down, so.
Because it has the spacing in between.
Right, so now is that a
Right.
case where white may be acceptable? I don't know, I'm just
Yeah.
thinking ahead for the next meeting, gather my thoughts, but.
Wait. it's a
But
tough
yeah,
one.
you can restrict it to,
Okay.
the options that we talked about, if that's what you
Right,
wanted to
yeah,
do.
let's bring it up again.
Just to give them more options,
But I
great
like,
job on
I
this.
like
Thank
Ron's
you.
idea about the treat large developments differently.
Yes,
Yeah, I think that's
'cause
a,
that's where it all stemmed from. That was,
Good idea.
was the project that
Yeah, I think
started it all.
that's definitely a deal breaker for me, yeah, so.
Hmm.
so
Okay,
in the absence of doing anything on the issue, if a resident wanted to put in a white fence, they would have to
They would still have to come here for now.
come here.
But I've been telling people that have been calling, they're talking about it, so, if you want to wait a few more months.
But they would have to come in on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, just
Okay.
like the last one came in.
Okay.
unless they already have it on one side and they just
Well,
wanna
yeah,
complete
sure.
the
And
fence.
if they already
or-
have it on one side, it makes
Thank you
sense
for
to.
making sense. of
And,
that.
and
Well,
we
that
would-
one is only if it's facing, the way that the board did
street?
it back in 2016 was they have to have one that already faces the right of way, which is very rare that you ever get one like that. Not where it's internal, like,
Got it.
because they usually want to close off their property, and I don't think you have ever really approved anything. But you did give us the leeway to do that, but it doesn't really apply to anyone.
Yeah.
But they-
Now, on the fencing topic, can you click to the one that showed the aluminum fences?
The pickets,
Yeah, I don't know if
Okay,
that's
I'm
picket or
really?
not.
okay.
couldn't take it.
That one.
That, the bottom middle. If you were to lose your screen enclosure during a hurricane and you had a pool, if you wanted to put this in around your pool, is that considered a fence or is that considered a pool safety enclosure?
It's both. I mean, it's a pool, if you don't have a baby gate around the pool, this is considered a pool barrier fence, as long as it meets the requirements of code, and it has to
Yeah.
have like a lock that's certain
You have to
height.
have several
feet high,
yeah.
layers of pool safety.
And I believe you have to have an alarm.
And
So there's
alarm.
different
There's-
things
yeah.
that, but yes, that could be. The shadow box, the one on the top is not an acceptable.
No, I'm just talking
Oh,
the
okay.
one bottom middle.
Yeah,
Okay.
And it would have to be converted then from a fence to, if there's no other layer of protection for a pool barrier, they'd have to convert that to a pool barrier instead of a fence. It
so you
would
have to
be
come in for a
pool
new
barrier fence.
permit.
Okay.
And
So it-
that's
so
where
it-
everything
so it-
else gets, you have to take a look at the doors, that there's alarms, all
So
access into the
so if it got
properties.
converted to that, then it wouldn't even come to us.
No,
Okay.
you wouldn't see any of this. Mm-mm. That's an approved type fence, and to become a pool barrier, you have to meet the pool barrier code.
Okay.
That requires that plus all the other layers for safety, pool safety.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any comments from staff? From the board? Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
And Kelly, you're gonna drop us a note